Morning everyone, my name's Caroline. I run a think tank called COVI. We're a visual think tank exploring the ways in which political and civic participation can reach beyond the conventional left-wing and right-wing debates and reach out to the 99% to engage more meaningfully in their civic and political lives. So, women as leaders in town centres. The trouble with women in town centres is that you fall in love with them, they fall in love with you, and when you criticise them, they cry. Of course, I'm misquoting Tim Hunt, the scientist who caused quite a stir a couple of weeks ago, and in case of any doubt, I'm joking. But the sheer level of public debate and interest was interesting, I think. Do we still need to talk about the role of women in any walk of life? Some said that they were really offended by this, but others just thought it was a little bit silly and blown out of context. And the challenge, I think, when talking about gender diversity in any sector is not about the attitudes, because, only a small number of people really feel that there is an attitude problem. And young girls today are empowered with the knowledge that they can succeed, and they have, positive female role models. So, not an attitude issue. And neither are there overt barriers in terms of access. I think the Church of England was probably the last institution to have a gender barrier at the top, and their second female bishop is consecrated down the road in York Minster tomorrow, I think. Attitudes are fine, access is not as much of a challenge as it was, but to grow the number of women in leadership roles in any sector, I think we need to think about the opportunities. So growing, promoting the types of roles which are both relevant and appealing to women and their ambitions to participate and lead in the things that they want to participate and lead in. So I'd like to talk about the opportunities for women as leaders in town centres, but I don't think that means women as leaders of town centres. I think the real question here is what sort of town centres do we want, and how do we diversify and devolve leadership within them? So what sort of town centres do we want? The high street's emerging from an identity crisis. I think everyone here recognises that it's no use sort of lamenting the decline of the high street as a centre for commerce, as it was 50 years ago. And as much as there are challenges in evolving to this, it's also a time of huge opportunity. We all understand that to be successful, town centres must be much more than places to shop. They're shared spaces for the community to come together. They're an integral part of our social journeys. The town centre, as it was originally conceived, really, the agora, the public square, multi-purpose centres for common life and the common good. And to make this happen, we need much more vision, more diversity, more creativity in terms of leadership. And we need to, I suppose, radically democratise our town centres. Open them up to be led by the many rather than the few, because surely by increasing the opportunities for women, this can only be done by increasing the opportunities for everyone to be leaders, not just in official roles or formal positions, but everyone to be leaders in their town centres in which they live and work based on their own interests and passions and what they care about. So not just women as leaders in retail or enterprise, but community leaders, civic leaders, ordinary people leading and co-creating public services, creative and cultural leaders, and leading the innovation that we need to make more of these things happen. Retail and commerce, according to the FSB figures last year, women opening high street businesses tend to be better educated and borrow less to set up their company than male counterparts. They also tend to run outlets that offer higher levels of customer service and experiences that are impossible to provide on the internet, hairdressers, cafes, but also just thinking about the less conventional business models. This is Jill and Marge. They're real people based in the northeast. They run the Labelled Clothing franchise, which supports young people who are furthest from the job market by creating opportunities for enterprise, giving them skills and training in retail. They've both had successful careers as in public services as teachers and community and youth workers, and they decided to set up a market stall with young people, and that's now turned into a high street shop on the high street in Cockerton in Darlington. So viability, creativity, it doesn't have to mean huge profit margins, it can also have other ambitions. Women as leaders in enterprise. The labour force survey last year found that between 2008 and 2011, women made up 80% of the newly self-employed. This is an example of Cynthia, who is the founder of an organisation called Kitchenette. It's a social enterprise in London which runs a year-long programme for food entrepreneurs and supports them and mentors them to develop a business. There's some serious mentors involved, chefs from the Cinnamon Club, Innocent Smoothies, Pret a Manger, and they help their trainees access market sites and pop up at various food spaces and festivals so that they have an opportunity to reach out to people and customers and landlords and restaurant investors. Women as community leaders. So we've got the decline of traditional neighbourhood hubs, and social cohesion is shown to be vastly improved not just by members of the community meeting, but just passing by on a casual basis, building resilience against civic disorder and improving well-being for the people in the communities in which they live. So this might include spaces for local clubs and seeing the town centres as places for people to meet and more informal community projects. I'm sure some of you know Pam Warhurst, who's the founder of Incredible Edible in Todmorden, a project where local people have been growing and sharing food in public spaces around the town. It began with herb gardens and has expanded to growing veggies and orchards around the high street, mostly with the permission of the local authorities, sometimes not, they just went ahead and did it, and they now work with a number of public bodies such as the police station and the train station and social landlords. Women as civic leaders. Here, let's maybe look at the opportunities on high streets and town centres as a place for MP surgeries, a more dispersed town hall model, spaces for political ideas, a modern speaker's corner, for example. Sarah is the Ops Director for Opus Independence based in Sheffield, which publishes an arts and culture monthly publication called Now Then magazine. They just ran Sheffield's first Festival of Debates a couple of months ago with the aim to provoke discussion ahead of the general election in May. So they held various panel discussions, debates and film screenings around the town in various public and private outlets, churches, bars, restaurants, brought local people together to discuss topics from housing to immigration to austerity. And, they had their local MP come along, they had, the university give talks and lectures. Women as public service leaders, and I think there's far more opportunities now for neighbourhood services and public services to move onto the high street, creches and childcare, NHS drop-in centres, learning and training courses, and there's an opportunity for public and private sector providers to work together to create intergenerational mixing and life centres. This is Najida, a community organiser in Wakefield, whose job it is to go around knocking on people's doors and listening to them, finding out what matters to them and supporting them to get involved in their local areas. Najida is employed by the Well Women's Centre, which has 2 sites in Wakefield, and provides non-medical services for women's health and well-being, long-term counselling, complementary therapies. So the centre is run by a dedicated team of around 60 volunteers. You could say that they're all leaders. They all help this happen. And creative and cultural leaders. Karen is the co-founder and artistic director of East Street Arts, based just down the road in Leeds. This develops artists through its events and membership and exchange. Professional development, provision of studio spaces. They've been nicknamed the Masters of Meanwell because they find temporary space on high streets and civic spaces and office blocks. So they're trying new things in new places and developing new audiences. And I think there's plenty of other examples of creative spaces, making and manufacturing workshops, 3D printing workshops, but sort of creativity in terms of outlook as well. And that's where leaders in innovation come in. My sort of personal bugbear is why there's an endless choice of iPhone apps if you need to locate your restaurant or your nearest hairdresser, but information about sort of more flexible space, social spaces is spread across numerous different websites and apps. And, all of this stuff is very nice, but how do we do it? Where do we find out more about it in our local places and how we can make things happen? Priya is the founder of Changeify, which is a digital community platform for local people to share the things they love or the things they would like to change in their neighbourhood. The way that it works is they meet via the app, they then go for a walk together to share something they care about. They discover and work with local businesses to get further support for whatever the issue is, and they take photos, exchange ideas and skills or neighbourhood prototypes, that sort of thing, to get backing from local businesses, city councils and groups and brands to help them make the change that we want to see. So in Camberwell, for example, there's a variety of restaurants, but those running them have noticed that they have a lack of diversity in their customers. The Nigerian restaurant noted their regulars tended to be Africans, and they wanted to share their food with others. So they developed a plan together to have a regular stall at the local farmers market that would host, each restaurant would host the stall twice over the year. So I've shamelessly piggybacked off the hard work and innovation of other people far more interesting than myself. And for every one of these examples, there are plenty more. And, men do these things too, obviously. But what do all these women have in common? For a start, they could all give Alan Sugar a run for his money in terms of entrepreneurial drive. But at the same time, they're all fairly ordinary. I doubt that many of them see themselves as traders or business people. And I think that the message here is that when ordinary people see a need or an opportunity, let them respond. Encourage them to take the future of their town centres into their own hands and shape their own places. The high street might not be the place to visit out of necessity anymore, but that doesn't mean it can't be the place to go out of choice and participate in. And, robots and algorithms and apps and data, they can't make people happy, but creative and fun places to live can. So this isn't just about women doing nice things, it's about real leadership, entrepreneurialism, creativity, innovation. And to diversify and democratise leadership in town centres, we need to democratise the meaning and purpose of town centres, see them as community hubs and civic economies. The market on its own won't solve the problems that town centres are facing. So how do we get there? Maybe 3 things to be learned. Rethinking how space is used. All of these projects think about not just spending but sharing. Rethinking who benefits, both the economic and the social perspectives, and creating partnerships across sectors and interest groups. And rethinking data as well, making it easy for people to come together, easier for people to find a space, to find partners to club together and solve the problems that they see for themselves and want to solve. I think it makes sense. There's a limited number of official roles and budget holders and formal positions for women to be involved with. So to increase the opportunities for other types of leaders within the sector, you're creating the conditions for many more leaders to step up, and that will apply to women, it will apply to others. I think there's learnings from the business world about the different sort of types of flexibility, the social skills and community perspectives or the empathy which women can bring to the table as leaders. And leadership breeds leadership. If we have more positive female role models in town centres, then it stands to reason that they'll be creating more positive female role models of town centres. So get all of this right and we've cracked it for women. Thank you.